Good morning to all of you, and that's my utmost pleasure to greet Katinka Soetens with us here today. And I would like to introduce beautiful, wonderful, fabulous woman who you really should know.
Thank you so much for having me to talk with you today. It's lovely to be here with you all.
I'm very happy that you accepted this invitation to have an interview with you because what I found about it is not a career, I would say, it's a path, a genuine wisdom keeper's path, a medicine woman's path. And it's only about 20 years that in some ways I'm following your path. And it's only the couple of last 10 years that I'm, let's say, more closely connected to you. But that's little time I've been following you made me the inner desire that I really would like to invite you to Hungary, which we did. So that's going to be a third or fourth time you're going to come to Hungary under my organization because you've been visiting Hungary much before as well. And you do have a connection to the Carpathian Basin as well. So I would like you to introduce yourself, not just through my eyes, but how you live, what you are exactly do as your mission, and how the whole thing unfolded.
Thank you so much, Nikoletta. Yes, it is a path. That's very correct. And not so many people get that, I think. There is a a reclaiming of the path of the priestess of the goddess. Uh, I'm standing like many of my compatriots who are also doing this, living this in this life again, reclaiming this for ourselves as women. Um, we're standing on the shoulders of great forerunners who have come before us. And I love this connection. We're like beads on a string, so that hopefully more and more people can find their own way back into their own personal, deeper connection with the divine feminine, with the feminine source, with the cosmic mother, with the great goddess, whatever word, with the golden ladies, whatever word we want to name, we want to give this aspect that has been really diminished, denied, and not allowed in patriarchic culture and religion. So it is actually really quite a thing, as you say, to walk this as a path, as really as a path. And then for
Yeah,
me, there's something around the reclaiming in that, in the divine feminine, really as deity. And what that means, not just as a goddess on the outside in the temple, which is fantastic, of course, and very much part of our European heritage. We are actually sitting on paganism, not as this boo-boo, horrible, scary, they're the nasty ones, they're the witches and the burning times and all this persecution, angst driven by the Inquisition and by extreme power over in monotheism. But actually, our culture in the whole of Europe sits on paganism as its indigenous spirituality. And you see this throughout the history of all of our lands. So there's something about a goddess in a temple and places of worship or places of connection and imagery of her that echoes into Catholicism and more orthodox forms of Christianity, for example, where you still have the feminine in some diminished form, and no disrespect, but very diminished to what the goddess actually is. Um, but then also as a modern pagan and as a modern goddess woman, as a priestess of the goddess who has dedicated herself to walking that path of the spiritual in the everyday life. So not in a monastic sense of outside of ordinary life, very much
yeah.
in the middle of ordinary life.
Yes, by
What
the
that
way,
actually means.
yes, could you just clarify us what you mean by goddess and using the term priestess?
So, goddess is a way of naming the divine feminine. For me, and this is a personal view, it doesn't have to be anybody else's. There's no such thing as the truth that has to be truthful for everyone. Though I do think there are some fundamental principles that come with being a human being on this planet at this time that are truthful or not truthful. But that's a more political point of view. Anyway, Goddess for me is a form of the divine, which is, of course, really a, a thing that you can't describe. It's a felt experience. It's a reality. It's not a fantasy. Um, and we as humans are very good at giving forms to things that are actually not necessarily defined by form. And so over time, many forms of the divine, and they were first female and then male. So first you had goddesses and then also gods. And there are many, many faces. So the feminine divine for me is actually the source, the divine source that is not necessarily gendered at all, and that encompasses, I can't speak this morning, encompasses all genders, all form of human form, because we are giving the form. We are the human brain and mind and heart creates those forms. They don't exist without us in that form, really. But because the divine can be any form, yeah, you get this interface between the land that is sentient and sacred nature and the people living as part of that land, as part of nature. In that interface, the forms of the divine arise. That is why different forms of goddesses and gods in different cultures, in different lands, in different climatic zones, in different environments, have very different forms. And so for me, goddess is this. She has many names throughout history and now in the reclaiming times of feminine-led paganism, which does not diminish the masculine at all. For me, it is incredibly inclusive. If we're not going to be inclusive, we're just repeating the patterns of monotheistic, patriarchic power over systems, which I am not interested in. That's being done everywhere, and let's be the difference. Let's be the change. So, but for me, she is this, and that is probably because I am a woman. She is this first form. And then you're looking into the historical record, the archaeological record, particularly of old Europe, which of course Hungary is like the heartland of, really, or certainly a part of. It's described by people like Maria Gimbutas and archaeologists and spiritual researchers since her as this source form of the divine, who then becomes the great mother. But she is not just the mother, she is, all aspects from birth through all the portals of the initiation stages of life into death and then returning into rebirth. And this is echoed in the great wheel of life, in the solar cycle of the year, in our own aging, in our own maturation initiation stages. So for me, goddess is this, and she has many names, and you can love her in many, many different forms, and you can love the god at the same time. She is not a jealous deity.
That's huge. And what does the term priestess means to you?
So priestess is really a name. It's an interesting word in English because we have this word priest, of course, and there are a lot of very negative connotations for many of us. There has been a lot of abuse of power in these male servants of God, if you like. That's what it means in Christianity or in Islam, yeah, to be a priest. Um, and then there is this thing of the reclaiming of actually a role of women, of the feminine, in a spiritual life, in a spiritual role of connection, direct connection to the divine. So a huge difference between the patriarchic monotheistic religions and paganism and a goddess path on which you can be a priestess or just a devotee or a follower, whatever you want to call yourself. I will explain why I call myself a priestess. But so there is this thing that there is not just one form of goddess or god, and you have a absolute personal direct line of communication, direct contact, direct lived experience. It doesn't have to go through some conduit person, which is a priest or a bishop or whatever in more monotheistic power over structure of religion. So this is a great freedom. As a priestess, it means what it means for me, and it means slightly different things for different people who call themselves priestess, that I have dedicated to walk a spiritual path in connection to the divine feminine in one or various of her many forms, and to serve her. And what that means is not to be a servant, as in a diminished sort of little woman who wipes the floors and makes the flower arrangements in the church, which is what the role of women has been diminished to in, say, the Christian church. Up to very recently, there were no women who could hold service. Now there are some in some forms of Christianity, but that's very, very recent. So a priestess is really a woman that actually I can stand for that. I can embody the sacred presence, which is another part of our particular path where we embody or put on aspect. And this is very much echoing into the ancient traditions of the goddess cultures of Europe. For example, Crete, where there is plenty of evidence that this was a common ritual, ceremonial practice, the living embodiment of goddess. Yeah, which is of course blasphemy to the monotheistic religions where this is not at all to be had. So for me, a priestess stands as a reclaiming, but it is also as a personal choice that this is actually the core place of my life. To live from that reality means I have to be in connection to my heart, or what people call my higher self, or love in my language, in my role as priestess of a particular deity, Rihanna Nipona. Yeah, it's the great guiding question of what love would do, which is not an easy thing to live by and which I fail at on various occasions. But that is what it means to myself to have the commitment to be a priestess to goddess in a particular form or in various forms. To be the best version of myself I can be is to serve her. To love myself and to love others is my service. To be the sacred vessel, therefore, to see the body and the life force, particularly sexuality, as sacred, not as sin, not as dirty, not as somehow detached, intellect good, spirituality pure, body dirty, sinful, sexuality the great boo-boo, yeah, the downfall of mankind. This is such a dualistic separation wounding that echoes in the way we live with ourselves and our body, in our relationships, in our relationship to nature and what we do there, which is just monstrous, really, when you look at it. How our political systems work, how our structures in society work, how we look after each other or not, how we behave. So to call myself a priestess actually has all these kind of aspects in it. It's a huge thing snapped into a little word.
Yeah, it really is. And thanks for trying to unfold it. But I would like you to clarify as well what kind of a service you exactly take. So, what form does it take when it comes to your mission and your everyday life? Because as far as I know, you have workshops, you do have a mystery school, you also have travelings all around retreats in the world. So, could you tell us more about how it looks like when you practice being priestess of the goddess?
Yeah, so for me, and that's again very personal and has to do with my own karma. So for me, the calling to goddess has really come through the path of sacred sexuality and all the rites of passage associated with that, which I collectively sort of call the blood mysteries. But they are not just for women. They are also there is an equivalent initiation wheel for men. Yeah. So this is a reclaiming of our life as a woman, really, of our the sacredness of our menstrual fertility cycle, whatever form that has, and our sacred sexuality, pleasure as her ritual, um, and the connection again, through that layer of centuries of separation, of the sexual in connection to the heart, or the sexual in connection to love, and then that combined into the vehicle of a spiritual awakening, a spiritual connection to Goddess, to God, to sacred union. And so that for me is my personal piece, the fragment of the jewel that is me as a soul, through which my priestessing and therefore my serving her manifests in my work. So that has meant working as a doula, which is a spiritual midwife in birthing situations, and in the preparation, therefore, as a natural active birth teacher, for example, a trainer of doulas for a while, working with best baby positioning and how we can reclaim birth as natural and as empowering and as sacred, away from the medicalized industry that it is. It has been working with menarche, first blood, and holding circles around that for young girls. It has been working with sexuality and reclaiming the tantras of lovemaking, but also of how sacred sexuality works in our body, how our body becomes her temple when we're full of that light, the connection of our life force with our heart in connection to our higher purpose or to our soul energy. So that then also is working with men in the woundings around love, sexuality, body issues. Body issues. We all have as humans body issues, and the path of love, which is my name of my mystery school, working with Goddess and God and sacred union, is very much around this reclaiming of the body as sacred, as her nature is sacred. And so the work is with women, with men, in circles, and now specifically based around the reclaiming of the sacred sexual priestesses, and a 3-year training that is around that.
Thank you very much. That's really huge and amazing as for the mission and goddess embodied in your priestessing all around the world, I could say. Because you were traveling, and as we speak, you're in Spain. You just had a retreat, and in February you're going to Hungary. And as far as I know, you were traveling much all around. So could you talk a bit us through about your travels and retreats? Because that's also a very important part of your life, like a traveling priestess. This is how I perceive it.
Yes, that's how I perceive it as well. And I've been very, very fortunate to have been able to create a life where I love traveling, and I particularly love traveling in Europe. I mean, I also like other places further afield. It's so good to go for me, and it has been so informative to go to the ancient goddess lands and sites, archaeological sites, and to recognize this very, very, very long tradition or culture. Yeah, often it's described in museums as cult, and I always think, oh, if they've left out the end of the word. When you read cult in a historical sense, when it comes to goddess people, you need to read culture. Yeah, it's not the same as modern day cults. Yeah, it's not negative. It's a great culture, the culture of the goddess. That is ours. It doesn't have to come from the East or from the anywhere else in the world where they have an unbroken heritage, which is we can also learn an enormous amount from, of course. But really, this is our cultural heritage. And so for me to travel is very important and joyous. I also love meeting with, I am daughter of Europe, daughter of Europa. And so I love going and visiting friends like yourself, Nikoletta, who are women also really trailblazing this returning of the divine feminine in the very many forms, the reclaiming of the body as sacred, our energy as sacred, in connection to the land, working very actively in the places where we are reclaiming our humanity and how we are together as people, and where we work for and with nature, not in war with nature and in domination of nature. So it is very lovely to connect and to travel and to be a traveling priestess, a sort of ambassador for Avalon or whatever, you know. I'm not really, but you know, that sort of thing. So I enjoy it a lot. It's very good for me personally. And I love bringing the work that is really needed, particularly amongst women, but also amongst couples or men's circles. But at the moment, it is mainly women I'm working with. The wheel of initiation is such a reclaiming, is such a deep work in healing the aspects of ourselves that are stuck in old survival patterns caused by all sorts of things. And to work in a trauma aware way, um, to initiate ourselves into the healthy forms of the great wheel of the goddess, the great archetype wheel of the goddess, so that we may become absolutely this radiant being who owns herself, who is sovereign in her body, sovereign in her heart, sovereign in her mind, free to a great degree of our conditioning. I don't believe we can ever be entirely free of our conditioning, but as free as we can be, so that we can make choices that are freedom choices in all aspects of our life, including the great challenges that each of us will meet. And this is not where Goddess has abandoned us or something. This is actually where we are having the opportunity of soul growth to step into this, what we have learned, to actually walk it. So for me, this is part of why I travel. It is needed in so many places. And I'm very super grateful. And, you know, it is my actual work, it's my job, it's how I make my living, as well as that it is this sort of passionate part of the reclaiming of the divine feminine in our times, in our bodies, in our hearts, and in our relationships.
And we need this passion and agility so much that you have. And as well, that's also my perception that you are connecting the dots in space and time, and as well weaving the threads again and again so that it somehow could be seen again and again what it means to be the goddess and a woman embodying the goddess. And one of your major topics, of course, is love in all kinds of senses of the word, and the other is freedom, soul's freedom in our embodied life, and as well as sovereignty by that. So you're going to come to Hungary, and this is the two major topic that we've decided that you're going to offer for us. And we are going to come back to these two issues in two different little short interviews so that you can listen to Katinka more. And please do come to the workshop because you're going to have a beautiful opportunity here and it won't come back. So you are coming here in February and we really would appreciate if you could make the time and effort and meet Katinka personally, because as you can listen to her, you can just feel into this grateful, heartful women really can offer a lot to us from her wisdoms. And as well, I'm very happy that I have the opportunity to go back to Avalon, as you've mentioned, because you're also the ambassador of Avalon. This is how I perceive again, and I dare call you like that. So a very important torchbearer is holding up the light and protecting this light, I would as well dare to say. And that's the Goddess Conference, which is a huge mission as well. And that's from year to year, I'm also a participant of. So I would like you to tell us a bit more about this Goddess Conference thing. So how it all began with Kathy Jones, how you just continue this beautiful tradition. And as far as I know, because last year you just uh, let's say, I'm just going to give the opportunity for you to tell it. So changing the structure of the work, are you going to continue working, which is very important because it is a response to what you've said a couple of sentences earlier. So how patriarchal structure should be, I would say, demolished or changed or transformed, and what it means to really work together in cooperation, cooperating with each other and making a synergy or synergy. So could you just talk us through what Goddess Conference is, and what your role in it is, and how its future is going to unfold.
Thank you, and thank you for saying those things. Yes, and it's always such a total pleasure to have you as part of our Wisdom Keeper presenters who bring the different threads into the conference. And I so look forward to seeing you again. This year's conference is a mother year because we work with 5 archetype cycles, goddess of creation, mother of all creativity, and we look very forward to seeing you with us again, Nikoletta. Also, something else you said is, I think, very important. This is not at all the conference, Goddess Path, reclaiming of the divine feminine, a sort of returning to some imagined golden age, excuse me, golden age in the past. This is really about how we are living it now and bringing it forwards. And because we are in Europe a broken heritage, yeah, in paganism and in the ways of goddess, the reclaiming of this, one of the great things that Kathy Jones did was begin with Tina Redpath, by the way, who is often forgotten in this. There was 2 of them in equal setting. It wasn't one above the other initially. Yeah, so Tina and Kathy started the Goddess Conference very much as part of let's get people together internationally. Let's talk about goddess. Let's educate people. That's how it started. Let's celebrate the different faces of goddess, the different archetypes. And then it became really a place where priestesses could actually have a role. So this led to priestess trainings becoming a thing. Then Tina stepped away at some point. I think there were all sorts of things going on, whatever. And Kathy became the sole person holding that conference, with many of us by now priestesses, initiated through either the Avalon training or from our own backgrounds already on that path. And so we were supporting and helping. And then eventually she wanted to step away because it is a huge job, of course, it's massive. And Marion van Eupen, or Marion Brigantia, as she calls herself, and myself were tasked to hold the conference, and we took that over. It was a gifting from Kathy, and it was also a business exchange. We bought the conference as a business. And we immediately felt that we did not want this hierarchical structure, but that is often how you're seen when you're holding something or organizing something. And so we started to create a circle-based structure, very much based on the work, for example, of Jalila Bonheim, who is one of my way showers, and other people, Lynn Sedgmore, who very much work in different forms of leadership and encouraging a circle. So we created, Marion and I created very much as part of our vision for the conference, this circles within circles. And the last piece of that was our ownership in a business sense of the conference, that we also wanted to step away from, to become not the 2 of us, but a circle of holding. And so we, this year, since the ending of the last conference, which was the Goddess of Sacred Union Conference, the Lover Year, we have become a CIC, and what that means is a community interest company. And so instead of the partnership that Marion and I were as a format, the conference now is its own entity legally, like as a thing, as a business, because there is that aspect to all these things. And Marion, myself, and 3 other people who've worked for the conference a long time in various forms, or who are ready or were available or we felt could work well together with us, have become the directors of the Goddess Conference. And we all have different roles, and we're finding our way in that, because it's a big transition, but it is absolutely our heart's commission to ourselves and to Goddess as this service, this offering, to never get trapped into these hierarchical forms of working, really. And that's difficult because we all like to be right, at different times. But also it's great because we actually get to do it. We get to walk it and hopefully show that it really can be done without this leading to fighting or to discord or to problems that we can't solve with communication skills. And so we are working on a very much a consensual basis of leadership, if you like, that is a circle of, yes, it is an inner circle, but they are also overlapping because we all have these other roles also to make the whole of the conference work, and none of us are irreplaceable. So there is this great sense of this is something that needs to go forward, which links into the initial thing you said, that we are really working in the reclaiming from the past, in the actual living it in the now, handing something forward that does not have to be ours. Our name doesn't have to be stamped on it. We don't actually, this is how Marion and I feel, definitely. We don't have to be remembered for it. It's not some sort of legacy thing. It is something that we've done from our absolute joy heart. We have received from it, we've given to it a lot. And now, hopefully in the future, it will continue because it is an important place in the world where people can still come and find out. If you're curious about goddess, it's the best place to come to. If you want to experience great ceremonies, if you want to live in a temple community, we have this pop-up temple that we create every year, and the space that we have becomes the different forms of her temple, the different faces that we work with each year. And it's beautiful. All the art is stunning. All the performances are stunning. The talks, the presentations, the workshops you get to experience. And then ceremonies, plus we go out on the land of Avalon. It is amazing. So come, if you love goddess or if you're curious about goddess, you are most welcome. Whether you are a man or a woman, you are welcome.
Absolutely, that's a huge lifetime experience. So I would really recommend everybody to take part. So that's the usually at the end of July, and you can find all the information on goddessconference.com. So please find and check the info sources, and you can ask Katinka, or as well you can ask me if you are listening to this interview and you're a Hungarian speaker. I'm there to help you with the whereabouts and all the organization thing if you need help. So I would like us to go towards the issues of the women all around the world. You are traveling yourself, me too, and what we see all around the world that the suppression of women, which I would like to say was in the past, but it's still happening. So it's present perfect actually by far far less perfect as the verb tense would suggest. So that's an ongoing process, and we would like to change it. And that's also reclaiming tradition, also healing our wounds part of work, and that's also finding our ways and paths. And that's, I think, very important in your work that you are a pathfinder as well, and the creatrix too. So this is how I see you, because you also would like to find the new ways how things can go on much better than we did. So it's not something that we go back into the past and would like to repeat something, but because we live in a totally different world. So could you tell us more about how you see our world, the world of women, not necessarily gender-wise, I mean, but the energy of the feminine as such, and our future? Maybe you can include some nice messages to all of us who are listening to this interview as a kind of how do you think our future we should go on with? Maybe it's too much.
That's a
You
huge
can come,
topic, darling.
yeah, it really
I'll see
is.
what I can do.
Yeah, of course. Right.
And sorry, I have a tickle in my throat. So
This is a
um,
fascinating, huge topic, I
it
know.
is. It is a fascinating, huge topic. And unfortunately, I think you're right. I think misogynistic culture is rife. And the erasure and othering of minority groups and of the feminine within us all is huge. And unfortunately, that is also political. If we're looking at what is happening in Iran at the moment, if we're looking at what is happening in the United States of America at the moment, for example, as two examples, yeah, where in the form of a very extreme take on the Islamic faith in Iran, women are literally being murdered, are being erased from actually being able to be in a body, in a form. And this has nothing to do with a freedom choice. Unfortunately, it is a complete dictated way of diminishing the feminine as actually a human being. It's as extreme as that. And if you're looking at the extremism of Christianity in the evangelical streams in the United States of America, the same thing. It's an erasure. It is a diminishing to a tiny, tiny form. And this is actually what patriarchy has done to the goddess. It has reduced her to a smaller and smaller and smaller form of herself. I was referring to this earlier when I was speaking about the feminine form still being there in the Catholic Christian Church, but in the Protestant Church, not anymore. That's your classic example. Yeah, and to be reduced to the virginal mother, which is a ridiculous undermining of the great creative power of the feminine embodied by the goddess, by the great mother, and the cycle of life, which is often symbolized as the mother goddess and her son, her child of light, who becomes the lover, who becomes her hero, who dies back into her and is reborn out of her, which is a symbolic way of describing the great creatrix and the cycle of life here, both in vegetation and animal forms of life, of which we are a part as humans. Yeah. So what you're seeing in the political spectrum and in how women are treated, how women are spoken to, there's still the gender gap in payment, even in Europe, where we are sort of the golden rim of the world when it comes to equality. And this extends to the feminine in everyone. We are still extremely conditioned that if you are in a male body and call yourself a man, then you have to be and behave and like certain things and be a certain way. Instead of, and the same for women, you know, this is this idea feminine is soft and receptive and pretty and pink, and the masculine is strong and determined and action driven and blue. And all this are just human qualities or colors. They have nothing to do with masculine or feminine. And this is where we can get so entangled in these discussions and ideas about people who say, well, actually, I'm not this gender or not that gender. I actually feel I'm something else. Who is doing any harm to anyone there? You know, that's my personal opinion. Other women have very different opinions about that. For me, the fundamental place in all of this is if we are reclaiming the divine feminine and women as an embodied form of the divine feminine, if we are reclaiming the divine masculine in its true multifaceted aspect, and therefore see men as an embodiment of the divine masculine, if we see our inner masculine as divine masculine, if we see our inner feminine as divine feminine, and those two parts, those two streams of energy within us are in sacred union, how can we behave in a way that erases and others in a diminishing way in our life, in our families, in our communities? How can we be in power over structures? And when you're looking at what is happening in the world, for me, this is why it's not just a hobby or, isn't it lovely? You're in the West, so you are privileged, so you can indulge in these lovely ideas about spirituality. For me, it's part of the fundamental key to unlock the problems that we are having in our world, in our society, in our attitudes, and actually live in a different way. Not, like you said, a going back to something. No, a going forward into something. So for women to reclaim this, and for the feminine within us all to be given space and an allowing for the reclaiming of that, is the first step. Our ideas that we have about what a woman is and what she should be, and our ideas that we have about what a man is and what he should be, and what your life therefore should look like, what you should look like, how you should behave, yeah, what makes you successful and a failure, all that rests on this extremely distorted conditioning. So if we were to reclaim that, what a difference that would make. If you were to reclaim within yourself the sacred source of Goddess, of the divine, of God, but of the two of those in union, what would that feel like for you? What would that change in your life? How would you stand for those who are othered? And how would that increase your humanity, your compassion, your ways of wisdom, your ways of actually being in love with yourself, in love with life, and making freedom choices so that you can become sovereign in your life. And sovereignty is not monarchy, it's not about power over at all. It's about this inner connection to a truth that no one can diminish or take away from you. And no matter what has happened up to this point to you in your life, this is yours. It cannot ever be touched. It is sacred. And I believe that the very courageous people who are standing in the face of real brutality, of death, in the case, say, of the women and men who are protesting at this moment in Iran, for example, they are in touch with that source. Their courage comes from that. And I think we all need courage because our political systems are terrible at this time. And what is happening in the wider world from all sides of view that you want to look at it needs returning to sacred source as a place of not power over of others, but power within each of us to make the choices of what love would do.
Mm.
I think I've answered your question.
Absolutely. And the essence is, yes, returning to love. Oh, and our center, absolutely rightly said. That's a huge task for all of us, and a lot of healing and a lot of reclamation. But we are here together, and we can count on each other. Just as you and me, the others, or the sisters all around, and brothers of the goddess loving communities from really all around the world. And I think we should also turn to each other and really hold up each other's hands. So being together, because this is where we are. This is our life, very really happening. Unfortunately, not having riots and all sorts of things as in Iran at the moment, but still have our issues as all countries have. But if we meet in our circles, we come together and lift each other up and empower each other, I think that means a lot. And this is what you are doing, not just in your own communities, but I think with the Goddess Conference as well, and with your travels all around the world. So you are an ambassador of how you can do this thing. Because in order to do that, you need strength, a lot of strength. And as well, you need wisdom, which should come from all life experience that you really, I would say, past many things you've experienced, and we're not going to get into it. You need to meet Katinka in person so that you can experience all this huge wisdom, really. But I think with this interview, we could really give a glimpse, if not the whole picture, but more than a glimpse, I would say, about who you are, what you're doing, and really thank you. I'm personally very grateful so that I can know you and I can follow your path and we can do things together, like cooperate as well in Hungary. And I can help you hosting your beautiful workshops, and the Hungarians can get to know your work and through your work themselves, because that's the point basically. You are helping them, helping us to meeting our inner central sacred heartland, as you phrase it. So this is where we are expecting you, and do come to Katinka's workshops in Hungary. All the information are going to be on the website. I'm going to link it on the YouTube video, and as well, I would like to refer to you the pathoflovemysteryschool.com. We're going to write it as well, so that you can find Katinka and you can join all sorts of kind of goodies and beauties, I would say in one word. So thank you very much, Katinka, for accepting this invitation for the interview. And I know that a lot of more things could have been told, and maybe we're going to have some other opportunities to get into more details when you are here in Hungary.
Thank you so much, Nikoletta. And yes, let's hold hands across time and distance and work
Yes.
together as you are doing in your land. It's a privilege to come and be in Hungary. I'm so looking forward to seeing you all in February.
And we are looking forward to seeing you. And all of you do join us. All the best and blessings.
Thank you so much. Lots of love.